and he would start feeding it with debit cards and extracting cash out of the machine to try to dump the machine. Now, in more recent times, there's ways that bad guys will actually tap the network connection from the ATM, intercept the request traffic, and respond with a good to go. Doesn't matter. Whatever is entered, it's good to go. Just empty the machine. Okay, is what it does. And they're called ATM bust outs. And in that situation, there's no gun, number one, so you can't accidentally shoot yourself or somebody else.
And that saves a lot of time if you're sentenced.
Right. I mean, I had one case with a bad guy back then who went in, robbed a gas station with his gun, stuffed the gun under his belt, and basically it went boom.
Hate it when that happens. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crime and Entertainment. We got a very interesting guest here. Please welcome Tom Arnold, who is a digital forensics investigator, among many other things, and you held a lot of cool titles throughout your career. Welcome to Crime and Entertainment, my friend.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. Pleasure's all mine. Now, I guess, man, like with any guest, we like to start from the beginning. I think that's always an interesting job. Anytime you're an investigator at anything, we always like to start from the beginning and just figure out your path to where you are. So what was early life like? And then some of your interesting jobs, because you've had a lot of good jobs. You worked for NASA for a little while. You've done a lot of cool stuff. So where did it all begin for Tom?
For Tom, it all began as a police officer for 12 years throughout inside the San Francisco Bay Area, San Francisco and another city there. I was working for a city, and they decided it was time to automate things and automate records and those sorts of things. And they did a survey of the people, and because of my technical background, I got selected to actually lead that automation, which I did. And then I was sort of dispatched off to the Department of Justice to help build a criminal intelligence system that would allow, for instance, in the early days, if an investigator discovered a license plate or somebody in a car and they wanted to find out if the license plate had been used by other people or if this person was part of an organized crime group, they would submit a written request on a small card to a group of people, and within 7 to 10 days, they might get an answer after they searched manually through their card catalogs and just everything else that was there. So the system was really to try to automate that, to speed it up, so you could ask questions and get answers in a much more reasonable time. What I discovered is that the IBM guys working for me made an awful lot more money than I did, to be honest. So I left the police department and went to work for both Silicon Graphics and for NASA, Ames Research Center specifically, developing systems. And then evolved, thank you to the teams at Silicon Graphics, to building some of the very first e-commerce sites in the early 90s, very early 90s, and discovering that credit card fraud was quite a problem. So the law enforcement career was coming back to me. I then helped found two companies. One was called Software.net, that was digitally delivering software. The other one was CyberSource Corporation, which was doing electronic payments. And during the early years of that, I ended up with 6 patents dealing with how to identify somebody who's trying to commit fraud and not take a transaction from them. And also began doing early investigations, if you would, of internet forensics, tracing people. And during that period of time, I think we had 6 people that were actually arrested for committing fraud online, which now we're into the mid 90s time frame. Then realized, developing and expanding into the area of cybersecurity, or what was the early vestiges of cybersecurity, founded a company that took us forward, both doing cybersecurity work for the payments industry and beginning to do digital forensic investigations in the early days. And that carried forward right through to the end of my working career time, doing forensic investigations that ranged from law enforcement investigations to large computer hacks, malicious software, all of those wonderful things that take place. And from there, I stepped into a teaching position at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas to teach forensic investigations and forensics. And had an experience a few years ago that led to the book. And the book being developed, and then actually it's going to be a series.
Oh, wow.
So that's a long-winded answer
Yeah, that's
to a pretty straightforward question.
Yeah, that covers the gambit. So let's rewind back a little bit. Your time in San Francisco. I actually visited San Francisco 4th of July this year. I'm on the East Coast, as we discussed. I'm in South Carolina. So it was my first visit to San Francisco. We stayed downtown pretty much, but what's the what do they call where all the fishing and all the boat, where Alcatraz is?
Yeah, Fisherman's Wharf.
Fisherman's Wharf, that's right. So that's where we stayed. We stayed in that area. Nice place, very cold. I was surprised leaving South Carolina in the 4th of July heat. I was definitely not dressed for the weather in San Francisco. That I can tell you.
Yes, when that marine layer rolls in, when the fog rolls in, you get a very jaded view of what summer actually is in San Francisco until you leave the city and drive a few miles south. Then it turns into summer.
Wow. We also went to the I guess it's the world's famous Taco Bell that they have not too far from there, where they serve all the alcohol and everything, and it's pretty much a nightclub themed around a Taco Bell, I guess.
Yeah, it's an interesting city to visit. There's no question about that.
It is. What's some cool stories from your time working on the force in San Francisco?
Well, I mean, I rightfully worked in the patrol units, and at the time, radios were sort of a new thing. We didn't really have personal radios to a large degree. It was linked to the car. And one day, I observed a guy literally at about 3 o'clock in the morning running down the street with a television set on his shoulder. And, that's sort of strange. You go, that doesn't quite make sense. He was a big guy, strong, and he had it up on his shoulder here. And if you can imagine a TV set and the size of the old tube sets, this was not a small screen by any chance. And he's running down the street. So I decided to get out of the car and give chase. And I chased him up a 6-story apartment building, right, to try to catch him. And, it was just a very interesting period of time, to say the least. I got stuck up there. There were no radios to call anybody for assistance. And I got into a lot of trouble, actually, with my sergeant.
Oh, okay.
For doing that because I was by myself,
I interviewed his name escapes me. He was one of the lead detectives on the Night Stalker case. I can't think of Gil Carrillo. Yeah. Interviewed Gil. What was it? Was there some was it Zodiac? Did he do killings around San Francisco?
Oh yeah, no, he was totally in San Francisco.
Was that around your time you were there, or was that slightly earlier?
That was afterwards. After I left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you leave there. You're trying to get more. You're leading more of the getting things automated. You said.
Correct. Into the technology side of things.
And so I interview a lot of former organized crime guys on this show. And when you watch movies and things like Goodfellas and, things like that, you wonder like how these people were able to get away with so much. And I guess you kind of hit the nail on the head in your opening, description of, it would, if you did want to know something about somebody, they didn't have ways to communicate across different agencies. So it's a week, 10 days before you get any sort of correspondence back. By that time, they've moved on, case in another bank in another town. Yeah. So theoretically, it was a lot easier to be a criminal back in those days as opposed to how it is right now.
I don't know. There's a feeling that I had. Why would you go into a bank to rob a bank, hold a gun on a teller and get the money out of their cash drawer, which might account for maybe a few $1,000s?
Right.
Now, if you can cause the ATM machine at the bank to just dispense cash using a cyber technique, you can make $20,000 to $30,000. And if you can do it in such a way, in one case that we worked, this is not so many years ago, it was about 11 years ago. A gang was stealing debit cards and debit card information. So, like your debit card and your PIN number, they were making slug cards that would work. And then they would basically take an 11 or 12-year-old kid who would walk up to the ATM with the big bad gang members sort of across the street and around him. And he would start feeding it with debit cards and extracting cash out of the machine to try to dump the machine. Now, in more recent times, there's ways that bad guys will actually tap the network connection from the ATM, intercept the request traffic, and respond with a good to go. Doesn't matter. Whatever is entered, it's good to go. Just empty the machine. Okay, is what it does. And they're called ATM bust outs. And in that situation, there's no gun, number one, so you can't accidentally shoot yourself or somebody else.
And that saves a lot of time if you're sentenced.
Right. I mean, I had one case with a bad guy back then who went in, robbed a gas station with his gun, stuffed the gun under his belt, and basically it went boom, you know.
Hate it when that
And
happens.
we ended up having to cart the bad guy off to the hospital, with a bullet wound in the where. Is basically what it was. It's not worth it. It's not worth doing that. But I would say when you're dealing with cybercrime and the varieties of cybercrime, and now there's many, many different types of cybercrime, and we refer to it as the typologies of cybercrime. A lot of times you're just anonymous
Yeah.
and largely anonymous.
Do you happen to know the name Brett Johnson?
It does not ring a bell. I'm sorry.
So he was once referred to, I think, as the godfather of cybercrime, one of the originators of cybercrime. He was pretty
Okay.
damn good. He was in trouble a lot. He done multiple stints in jail. He's a very interesting cat. I interviewed him for around about 2 hours, and some of the stuff that he was able to pull off, he was actually able to do tax returns on dead people.
Oh yeah.
Now that loophole, I think, has since been closed, but he would get people that were deceased. He would file, 150, 200 tax returns Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then on Thursday and Friday, he had a plot of ATMs that he would go with prepaid debit cards. And he said he'd go around with his backpack and fill it up. It had 50 to 60, $70,000. He'd take it back, throw it in a room in his house until finally he didn't have any more room to put backpacks.
Yep.
I mean, it was insane, the kind of stuff you could do. And like you said, largely you're not brandishing a weapon. You're doing it mostly, behind the scenes, cloak and dagger, if you will.
Yeah, very much. And that's one of the natures and strong natures of cybercrime, is that it goes back to, frankly, 1993, and a gentleman named Peter Steiner, if you haven't heard that name, and he drew a cartoon that was published in the New Yorker that was a picture of a dog sitting at a keyboard, and he wrote the caption, "On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog." And it's absolutely true today. We carry this forward. It's a message that says, look, do you really know who you're dealing with on the internet? No, you really don't. I don't know for a fact that if I'm exchanging mail with someone, am I exchanging mail with the actual person? or not? Okay. Could someone have stepped in and be sending mail as them? Well, we see that all the time, right? I mean, that's really a common technique in today's phishing attacks. You don't really know. Even if it's a friend who's online and you're in a chat room with friends, do you know if someone actually didn't lose control of their username and password or their account, or they loaned their phone to someone else who's masquerading as them? You don't know. Okay. And that's just the flat out reality of the internet in general.
And that's interesting. And, since I got you, you might be the best person to ask this question to, right? So I've been American Express card holder for, I think, going on 15 years. It was one of the first credit cards that I ever got at my young age. Always been in good standings. I get a letter in the mail, uh, and it's addressed to a woman, Tierra Lemon. No idea who that is. Never heard of this person in my life. And it said the credit card you requested is on the way. Now it
Mm-hmm.
did have my address on there, but the name was wrong. I never heard of Tierra Lemon, and it come to my house. So my thinking was possibly, we did have some neighbors moving across the street. Maybe they put in 137 instead of their address, fudged the number side by side, something like that. I'm thinking it's probably the neighbors. Honestly, tossed it on the table and didn't think much more about it. So my wife, she was out on summer break. She works for a local high school. She
Mm-hmm.
decides to give American Express a call. Now, mind you, my wife's not on my American Express account,
Right.
and she managed to get a hold of somebody, and that person, had I was doing anything nefarious, which I was not, this guy told her, yes, your husband added Tierra Lemon as an authorized user. So had I
No,
been
you
doing this guy
didn't.
totally violated bro code 100%. But as you can imagine, my wife did not take too kindly to that. And so she
Yep.
immediately she called me and she's like, I don't know where you're at. I don't know what you're doing, but you need to get somewhere. We need to have a conversation. And she proceeded to give me the verbal business, if you will. And I had to
Yep.
tell her, "Look, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I've never authorized anybody to do anything." And I called back. I told him, I was like, look, I don't know who this is. I've never authorized anybody to have a card. Sure enough, a card came about 2 weeks after that, a full blown
Yep.
American Express card with their name on it. Now that I got a new card in my name, to refresh everything. But since then, I probably had 6 or 7 credit card offers from different companies with the Tierra Lemon name on it. So what do you
Yeah.
think happened there? Just out of curiosity.
Well, I think there's a couple of possibilities. The number one possibility says that somebody got your information and potentially logged in as you, again, masquerading as you, had the card issued to the name as sort of a first step. They were either going to watch your post box, if it's one of the ones on the street that all you got to do is open the lid
Yep.
and try to get to the card so that they could actually utilize it. Um, that's common. The other side of it is identity theft. Hopefully, you're keeping a view of your credit history and all of those wonderful things to see
I
if
actually
other sort of
I have
credit.
it locked.
Yeah, that's smart. That's smart because this is sort of, I would say, typified. If I was going to profile it, sort of low end. I don't want to. We refer to sort of low end hackers as script kiddies, and this is sort of a low end one where they're getting card offers and having cards issued in a name that they can then utilize and wander around and charge to. Um, Not very sophisticated. They're a little more sophisticated than that. One of the things they could have done was potentially change your address and
Mhm.
have cards sent and information sent to the other address. They could have possibly even had you co-sign for another card back then. I mean, I don't know how many years ago this was. They don't allow that anymore, which is smart.
This is
But
actually recently this happened within the last year.
oh, well, okay.
Yeah,
Within the last year, now we're starting to feel like script kiddie sort of things.
yeah.
Somebody just trying to do an easy way through and try to get to the mail before you end up getting to the box, get to the card, run out and buy things. Hey, we're going to buy a new skateboard, bicycle, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. as this stuff. But yeah, that's a type of account takeover is really what it's referred to as.
That's what I've got a friend named Matt Cox who's got a pretty big podcast, Inside True Crime with Matt Cox. He was a mortgage fraudster.
Yeah,
He don't like to take credit for it, but I give him the credit. He probably bankrupted Wachovia and maybe SunTrust Bank with all the mortgage fraud he was doing back in the day.
yeah,
But he got out. He done his time. He got out, and he's got a pretty big podcast now. And he was the first person that I called, not to, he's like, why are
yeah,
you calling me? I'm like, well, nobody knows this better than you. And he said the same thing. He's like, what they probably
yeah.
did was, he said it could have been somebody that worked at a drive-through or something where you use that card.
Right,
They copied
right,
the number. They got your name. It's not hard to find your address after that. So they, send a card. They can call in, pretend they're you. They have all the information, the last 4 digits, all that good stuff. He's like, so then they just wait and, they try to grab it before you do. If they don't, then, they just missed it. It's no big deal to them. It doesn't really matter.
correct, correct. Yeah, that actually is pretty common.
Yeah. Yeah. Try telling my wife that. It didn't go over too well.
Yeah, I bet not. Okay.
And I
I
called back.
know you know her. I know you know her.
Well, and it don't help. They keep coming in after that,
Yeah, that's right. That's
And I
right.
called American Express and I'm like, look, to start with, number one, something's fishy going on. Close my car. But number two, how are you giving information to somebody that ain't even on my account? You're getting double negatives here, pal. You got to let somebody hack my account.
Right.
Now you're just telling people all kind of stuff. I even told the guy, I said, my wife left me. I mean, she didn't, but I was like, my wife was going to leave me for that, But yeah, they give away information quite freely. And that's scary to think you can call in with just a good story or something like that. And people give information right up. It's really insane.
Well, you can also look at social networking sites, a variety of them. Facebook is a good example. How many times has Facebook been hacked and had all their user accounts and passwords taken? Years ago, I opened a Facebook account with a completely fictitious identity. I just made up everything and opened the account. And even today, just probably hours ago, I received emails to that fictitious account that are just crap. People who claim they know me, claim they want to talk to me, just whatever else. We're talking about 20 years ago. So it's actually pretty sad when you realize that, yes, there's hacks and username and passwords can be taken. And, people just in general, now that I've told this story, have to realize that you cannot share a password between organizations. Hopefully it's not your work password and you didn't use your work email address, because otherwise there's much bigger problems coming your way.
Yeah.
In those type sites.
Yeah, for sure. Just out of curiosity, because I don't want to gloss over this, is a huge deal. What did you do for NASA?
I worked in the central computing facility and actually ran an advanced graphics lab that was, and a couple of other labs that were doing fluid dynamics work on aircraft design, along with capturing data from wind tunnels at the time. If you look at the time, and you think of a wind tunnel operating and they're capturing pressure data from the wings that they're testing, it's a phenomenal amount of data that's streaming. And in those days, it was actually very challenging to capture that data and make something of it as to what's going on.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, so.
All right, so I got it.
It wasn't in the space program. It was the aeronautics side. Yeah.
I was about to ask, moon landing, real or fake? You
No,
got to ask.
No.
So I mean, but it's so crazy to think about all the stuff you were doing back then and what you guys were working with and the technology that you had compared to what it is now and what's out now. It is just insane.
Yeah.
I mean, technology is insanely different, which at the same time, in one way, it's great because it's great for society if used properly, but you have those people that's always going to figure out the ways to use it, the evil and deceitful way to do things that you're trying to prevent.
That's correct.
What's some of the most cunning ways that you've seen people commit cybercrime? Like, obviously, I don't like to give people credit that are doing this. They're bad stuff. But at some point in time, you got to admire creativity in the way that they do it. What's some of the more creative ways you've seen?
Well, I think one of the things to realize is that the term and sort of what cybercrime is has evolved over the last 15 years,
Hmm.
rather massively. In the early days, computer hacking and computer trespass were some of the real evil things. We did have malicious or malware, malicious software. I was actually at NASA when the Robert Morris worm hit, as a good example, which everybody's sort of heard about. But that's not malware today. And then just to sort of go through a few others, the pornography and image abuse that's going on currently, child sexual exploitation, the cyberbullying and harassment. And, we've always had the bullying, harassment, and stalking, but never cyberized, if you would. Okay. Now it can be much worse. It can have catastrophic impacts. Warfare and intelligence operations. People ask me all the time, why don't they make it illegal to write malicious software? Well, it's because the state sort of uses that to hack the other guys, if you would.
Yeah.
you know, Illicit market operations. I mean, who would have thunk that you could use a browser that is anonymized and go to sites on the internet where you could buy a hitman? You could buy anything you want, basically.
Yeah. On the dark web.
That's right. And so that's sort of what the world looks like now. So looking at the cases, I mean, we've seen intriguing cases when I was working, responded to one hacking situation or believed hacking situation that involved 7,000 computers in the data center. And so now you're in this, let's find the needle in the haystack. Where is the bad guy in here? What's he doing? And he was only victimizing, although the attack actually was traced and came from Indonesia. The issue was he was only attacking people who lived in Hong Kong, South Korea, or Germany. I have no idea why those three countries. And those were the identities he was stealing. That's the data he was stealing, but only those three countries, nothing else, which was intriguing. And so the techniques to locate them, the techniques to find where's the bad guy and what is he doing, and then trying to isolate him and contain him inside the data center or in this, the system itself. And then gently, sort of, as you contain him, you just sort of close the walls in and you begin to eradicate him. And then the company begins to recover. That was probably a large hacking case. The malware cases, some of them as a good example, the early Petya, which was named after one of the satellites in the James Bond movie, okay, that came out. And now we hear of not Petya, because it's not, but Petya's original thing would literally destroy the whole system. There was no recovery once it activated. And it had a very unique way of activating itself because it would take it from something called the master boot record all the way through everything that it encrypted, which at the end of the day, you can't recover.
Right.
Is really what it is. And, they were doing the whole extortion thing and all that sort of stuff. I think they realized that they were a little too deep in the system, so NotPetya doesn't quite do that. Okay. There is a potential of recovery, but ransomware has evolved. They realized that nowadays there's an advantage to letting the victim know that they've been attacked.
Mm-hmm.
The advantage is I can now extort them. So I'm going to break in, locate all the information. I'm going to use the technique of encryption to steal the information that I want. When I think I've extracted enough information, I'll just activate the ransomware and you and I can have a little negotiated discussion with regards, which is the extortion. How much are you going to pay me to get your data back? Well, I don't mean decrypting the system itself. That'll be a part of it, but there's more. I have all of this. I'm going to post this and sell this online. unless you pay me even more. And so, who would have thought that ransomware at the time would evolve into something like that? But it did. Now we're beginning to see even worse when you talk about the bullying, harassment, cyber stalking, image based abuse, artificial intelligence, the ability to use AI to create images or alter images and do things, makes the deep fake a really dangerous tool that
Yeah.
they're using. In one situation, a teen girl, this was a story told to me by her, wanted to go to the beach with her friends really badly. And her mom said no. So she decided to put her bikini on, get onto her bed, and take individual pictures of herself and post those to her friends. See, I'm at the beach with you, sort of thing. Within about 2 weeks, one of the images came back and the bikini had been removed. And it was the beginning of an extortion. Now, this girl was smart enough at the time to know that that's not the picture she took. You know, a lot of kids would be so panicked by that, they'd be terrified to talk to mom and dad. But she went and talked to her mom. Mom exploded, and, all that happened. But the reality is, she did the right thing by going to her parents, and the parents then working with law enforcement to deal with the situation itself. But to this day, she doesn't know who got the photo and who actually manipulated it and sent it back to her. That person was never tagged. So now you're seeing those types of technology that are being utilized to do even more damage, potentially.
Are you familiar with the Ashley Madison scandal website deal?
Yes.
So whoever done that didn't necessarily hold it ransom. Well, they kind of did, but their whole thing was they wanted them to shut it down because they didn't agree with the
Right.
principles. And their whole thing was life is short, have an affair. And it's where
Right.
all these people were meeting up on these sites and
Right.
having, marital affairs on their partners, which is a horrible thing. But at that time, the users thought their identities were safe. They
Of
were,
course. You told me it's safe, so it's got to be safe.
and so this hacker takes it over and basically says, if you don't shut it down, I'm going to release every user on here, which
Right.
is going to destroy your business. And they called the bluff and they did. They released them all.
They
And
released the information.
that was a lot of, I don't know if you ever watched that documentary, but there were some people that chose to unalive themselves
I
because
know.
of the positions that they held and the people that it would hurt. And,
That's right.
a lot of couples that had, been forthright and not so forthright about their involvement. And, it caused a lot of ruckus, but in that case, they weren't necessarily doing it for a ransom. They were kind of doing it for the right reasons. I don't know if you want to
Well,
call that a heroic act or not, but
there's different, extremism is an interesting area to look at. It's a different category of cybercrime
right.
that's out there. Um, the term hacktivist has been utilized, and
Ah,
early days, the hackers would break in, they deface the website, see you're killing whales or whatever, and you're evil and blah blah blah. But they do get a little more sophisticated. They will steal the data, like in the Ashley Madison case, and sit there and go, "No, you need to close down. We have your data." Now, in that case, the operators of Ashley Madison were sitting there thinking, "Well, you're bluffing. You don't really have my data." And that's the difference between a ransomware attack. Now, if ransomware was involved, they would have encrypted the whole system and said, "We have your data and we're going to release it." And then Ashley Madison would have probably capitulated in some way, shape, or form. Who knows? They may not have. They may have said, "No, no, 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 we're not going to pay. We're not going to do this stuff," basically. So that sort of extremism can take many different shapes, by the way. Like in the Kirk case right now is really interesting to look at cyber extremism as well. Whether
mhm.
you're hard on the right or hard on the left doesn't really matter. Okay. They all use gaming. They all use systems like that to try to recruit like minded individuals and indoctrinate them into their principles. It's kind of the same techniques, sadly, that are used to groom underage kids
Right.
into human trafficking and child sexual exploitation in general. Okay, same sort of techniques. So that extremism does exist out there. It became most famous in 2001 or just after 2001 when it was discovered that Al Qaeda was using games to try to recruit people into the Al Qaeda cause from around the world. And they were using the chat forums and the games, they were using the games and the gameplay and everything else. Some of these organizations have actually developed their own games and released them. So extremism is another sort of brand of harassment, bullying, and stalking, but it's different. It's actually terrorism that begins to take place. Now, terrorism is different. Cyber terror is yet another different category, but still very similar, if you would.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And you mentioned earlier about the Silk Road. That was an interesting case with was Ross Albright, I think was his
Yeah.
name. Dread Pirate Roberts was the name that he went by. Didn't he just get out of jail?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't kept following him. He's not in my followed list.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, I followed the case just because they did.
Oh, it's
Everybody did
interesting.
say it was very interesting, and I want to say they gave him life, but I believe he got out. He was able to,
He may have been paroled.
yeah, fight something and get out. But it was a very interesting thing because, like, you're not doing anything wrong per se, but you're facilitating a platform for other people to do things that
Correct.
are up to, including, like you said, hire a hitman for things. And
Correct.
you're buying illegal drugs, you're buying narcotics, you're buying organs, all kind of stuff you're
Well,
doing
you
on there.
don't know what you're buying, actually. You may be
Right.
buying illegal drugs or poison, you
Yeah.
know.
I interviewed this one guy that was he was making his own pills. He bought a pill press, he was making his own pills, and he was selling on the dark web, and then they would even get hacked on the dark web and they would
Yeah.
lose money. I mean, so it was like you're
Yeah.
getting robbed from your while you're doing your illegal stuff, and who you going to
Yeah.
go to? You can't go to the cops and say this guy just stole all the money I made for selling drugs. But when he finally did get busted, when he went into this table, he said it was like a long table with all these people, and he's like, trying to figure out who everybody was. And he's like, well, I'm agent so and so, but you know me as user, X553 or whatever. And he's like, every
Right.
one of them have been guys that I've been selling pills to for the last year and a half.
Right.
So they were just building the case and building the case and building the case.
Yep. No,
Right.
that's very interesting. I mean, that's the way the illicit markets function. They're still out there, and they do get shut down. They do suffer raids, and their servers are all taken, and they do get shut down depending on where they're at. And one of the problems is I have to go back to 1993 and say on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows you're going to hack their own malicious site and steal all their money. And
Well, I think too with the rise of people that are into crypto and doing cryptocurrency, I mean, some of these wallets can be huge. So you
yeah,
don't really, I mean, I know that people with a substantial amount of money, I'm sure take extra precaution. I would like to think that they would, but still, you open yourself up to be a target. There was just a thing in New York, I think, where a guy was kidnapped and basically tortured, and he
well,
managed to escape because they were trying to get his Bitcoin
it
wallet.
won't.
And a lot of that stuff, once you send it, there's nothing going to be able to do about it. You can't even get it
No,
back.
it's done. It's done. That's correct. There's no electronic fund transfer laws existing around that stuff. So there's really no recovery at all. It would be very, very difficult when you lose things like your Bitcoin wallet.
How safe are apps that have kind of swept over in the last year, like Cash App, Venmo, things like that? Would you consider those safe or still be weary?
It's okay. I'm sort of naturally weary because I'm still haven't left my cynicism cycle in life
And you've
when it
seen more
comes
than
to,
most too.
and yeah, that is one of the problems. I'm very weary and leery of companies that say, "Hey, we protect your best interest. Just leave it to us. We're going to do it." You know, uh, so I think if it's not used as the primary means of income, it's feeling a little okay to me. I think we see this in restaurants with the use of Toast and other tools to take payment that are sort of online payment. I actually like a lot of those. I have actually examined several of them from a standpoint because the companies used to bring me in or bring our team in to do a forensic examination of their product to see where they had vulnerabilities and where they had weaknesses and what sort of bad things could possibly happen to them. And some of the ones that I see used in the restaurants make a lot of sense to me. One is you were talking about your American Express card potentially being skimmed. It could easily have been in a restaurant when you put the card in a little book and you hand it to the guy and say, well, here you go. Take my card over there to some dark corner and do things with it.
Hmm.
Okay. And I like the environments where they come in and they set something in front of you. You can tap your card on it, it'll accept it. Now, because the cards are set up with EMV and the data on the card itself is very tightly protected, I know that that transfer of the data is not reliant on the company like Toast, although they do take precautions to encrypt again, okay, which is good. But because of the way the EMV card works, I do understand that that's pretty darn safe to utilize that, whether it's in a coffee shop or wherever else. And
Hmm.
then, you add your tip and off you go, sort of thing. That's much better to me than having a situation where I hand my card to somebody and they go off to the back room
Yeah, because
somewhere.
you don't know what they're doing. They could be writing those cards down. I mean, doing a podcast like I do, I talk to people that's run all
Yeah,
sorts of scams. I mean, I talked to a guy that was ordering blank cards from China. He had a press machine. He was making cards.
sure.
He
You
would
make
buy
cards.
credit card numbers, by the hundreds, and then go on spending sprees. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
and
crazy.
then that's right. And then you off to the gas station to test the cards to see if it'll activate a gas pump. If it
Yep.
activates the gas pump, the card's good. If it doesn't, toss it. Next one, sort of shot is what you do.
Even getting credit card numbers, I knew that the same guy I was referencing earlier that was the mortgage fraudster. He had this thing to where he would go to Vegas and he would interview homeless people. He would give them $20. He would give them a questionnaire form. And one of the questionnaire forms was, have you ever been convicted of a crime? And so obviously if they had, he couldn't use that name. But if they hadn't, he's basically giving them $20 and now he's got a blueprint for their entire life. So he would go get a driver's
Uh-huh.
license, a social security number. He would start building their
Everything.
credit. And then when he wanted to buy these houses, he would buy these houses in their name, make a couple of payments, then take out loans against them, and then boom, he was off. I mean, he had the
No, that's
scam
right.
down.
That's identity theft. That's
Yeah,
that's almost classic identity theft,
yeah,
and what they do with it, or what they've traditionally done with it. It's a little different online.
yeah,
Now they'll buy bitcoins.
yeah. I had some, but one of the, it's been probably 8 or 9 years ago, but I remember, and I wasn't even on anything bad, I don't think. Um, Something happened. I clicked on something and I got a reverse picture of me. It was like a picture from my own camera in my computer, and it said your identity's been stolen. Submit $500. It was like a whole thing to pay, and I was just like, "What the hell is this?" And I wound up taking it to a computer guy. He reset it or done something, cleared it out, and it was fine. But when somebody has something on there, say private photos of their loved ones or
Right,
wives, whatever videos you make on the weekends, you get a wild hair,
right.
and you got that on your hard drive for you and her, nothing illegal. It's y'all's private time together. Somebody has that. Now they're threatening to get rid of it with the right people. If you got that with the right people, that's worth a lot of money. And what
Hmm.
what seems to always happen is once they make that first payment, that is the worst thing you can do theoretically, because now you're a cash register.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, or a cash cow.
Yeah.
That's right. They're just going to come back and milk and milk and milk and milk. Yep, that's correct.
Yeah. So you had an interesting situation happen, I think, with your grandkid that kind of led you into writing this book. Give us some detail on that, and we'll get into the book.
Yes. Um, so the reality is, this would be a little over 2 years ago. And I should point out that the parents, the mom and dad, are both very adept at cybersecurity. The dad is actually a cybersecurity director for one of the large Washington corporations, as a matter of fact. And smartly enough, they created a safe harbor. If the kids had any sort of cybersecurity concern, they can bring it to them, no matter how much trouble they're in for something else or whatever else is going on, whatever the temperature is, the temperature drops immediately, and it's a safe harbor for the kids. They can go into that safe harbor. They're not going to get in trouble. They're not going to get grounded, blah, 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 all of those things. That's the environment that they were in. So my grandson was playing Roblox. And, I'm sure you've read probably quite a lot with regards to Roblox
Oh,
recently.
yeah.
He's playing Roblox. Now, they have all the parental controls set. They've got all the security controls set, and they're filtering data coming into the house itself. And he's playing Roblox. And an avatar comes up to him and holds up a sign that says, "What's your name and where do you live?" Now, my little grandson at the time, who, let's see, he would have been 7 years old at the time, immediately runs over to his mom and says, "I have a problem. I'm playing this game." Parents know the game. She looks at it, sees the guy holding the sign up asking the question, and goes, "What should I do?" Which is great that he did that. And now the mom helped him solve the issue as far as what should he answer to this guy? Should he just tell him, "Go away," whatever? But she also made a note to teach the grandson that this is not another 7-year-old online that's doing this. This is something else. Okay, and that's what he knows. Well, that sort of event kind of surprised me largely, and I began working in the university, examining how kids, young adults, sort of learn the topic of cybersecurity and learn about the threats and learn about the issues that are out there. And I decided, kids learn from other kids, they learn from their peers a lot, but they also don't necessarily learn from their parents. A parent once told me that she felt more comfortable talking to her kids about sex than cybersecurity and cyber safety because she was afraid the kid knew more than she did and that she would be outclassed. And she was embarrassed by having to do that. So that was another little piece. So I started putting the characters together and putting the stories together at the time and started working on that. So all the cases that are discussed in the book are actually real. All the techniques are real. They'll actually work. You can get a Linux machine or a Windows machine and get the software and it'll actually do the job. Okay, so it's a story about two 14-year-olds who inadvertently fight cyber terrorism, is what they do, is what the first book is with regards to. And it really was to try to open the conversation. Now, on Amazon, I think there's 43 reviews, which is great. And a few of those, parents are actually stating, I read the book and then I gave it to my son and he read the book and he really enjoyed it. And he started asking technical questions. Well, that's a win. I got a win. I'm opening the conversation as far as I'm concerned, specifically. And because I see too many times in restaurants where the parents pass out the iPads or they hand the teenager the phone and say, just do your own thing, just
Yeah.
don't mess with your brother. We just want to have a nice family meal here and we don't want to hear from you.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of shot. That's really common to see in restaurants as an example. So beginning to sort of have that conversation. Now, the next book that will be coming out deals with two very important topics. It deals with the topic of sextortion and human trafficking, which unfortunately are two very dark topics, but we're taking it as a teenage young adult book in not so dark territory,
Right.
but it can seem very dark in there as well. So that's really my intent of the books, was to create a novel where it is fictionalized. There's fictional characters. It takes place in the Northern California area and in Hawaii. Are the two places that it takes place at. And the entire point of this is that these two kids begin to intersect and intercept information about some very bad things that are going on. And, the one kid's pretty talented working with the tools and understanding how the computer systems work and how the systems move along, and begins to put the pieces of the puzzle together as to something really bad is going to happen.
Nice. Well, very interesting. What is sextortion?
Well, sextortion, I told you about the teen girl and the picture and those types of things. It's where basically a bad actor may groom a kid, get a kid to take pictures of themselves in some way, shape, or form, and then somebody else comes along to the kid and says, "Hey, look, we've got this. This is going to be posted so your parents see it. You're going to have to." It's an extortion situation that is sexually driven, and it affects young adults, teens, big time, even younger children, unfortunately, ages 12, 10, 9. And the sextortion cases themselves, because the kids are shocked by what's sent back to them, by what they're told online. They're terrified to talk to their parents. They won't go to anybody in the school. They don't know who to talk to. And it can lead to some very evil things taking place, whether they end up having to steal money and give money to the extortionists. They have to steal data from a parent, give that to the extortionist, because they may have been targeted because of who their parents are, as a good example. Or it ends in suicide frequently, unfortunately. It's
Mhm.
very, very sad when you see these cases. And given, excuse me, no, I'm good. Given the situations that you see online and the fact that the kid doesn't know where to go, who to turn to, what to do, sort of thing, um, they frequently try to solve the problem themselves, and they can't because they're going against adults frequently who've got them boxed into a corner. And they're either going to have to give in some way, shape, or form, or something else. So you do unfortunately see this a lot. That would be sextortion,
Okay.
and it's primarily image based.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. I was watching. Me and my wife were watching the documentary last night. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's Amy Bradley, about the
Hmm.
girl that went missing on the cruise ship. And
Yeah,
of course, there's been no one really knows exactly what happened. There's rumors she fell over, or may have jumped, or may have been pushed. There's rumors that a band member may have abducted her. A couple people have claimed to have seen her in like Barbados, and that she was put on the sex trafficking,
yeah,
and she was spotted on sites. But they did talk about some technology that was recently used to where it could monitor who went to the Amy Bradley website.
right,
And but because it's in other parts of the country, you can't really do anything about it. You can just monitor it. Like, you can't
right,
go and find out exactly where it was coming from, but it was saying certain dates, the same IP would go to that website and stay for certain lengths of time. So Christmases, birthdays, things like that. So why is this, person in another country, same IP address, go here and hang out on this website for 45 minutes, just got all these pictures? It makes you think a little bit. Could it be the
right,
kidnappers? Could it be her? Who
right,
knows what's happened to her? She could have gotten, have kids over there by now, and now she won't contact her parents in the States because of the kids, the what could happen to them. So it was a really wild documentary. And that case is old, but the documentary just recently came out. And I mean, it just you can't trust hardly anything these days with, like you said, with AI and all that. And we'll close on this funny story. I had a coworker. He worked for me. And so I was the shop foreman, and we had the owner, and he's like, he said, I'm gonna tell you a secret. He said, but you can't tell the owner. All right. His name was Mike. And he said, he said, whenever I want to get out of work, he said, I'll text Mike a bunch of stuff the night before. And he's like, and then I just won't say anything else. And he had an app that would like clone the way the text thread looked, the color,
Mhm.
the font, the
Everything.
Android, iPhone, everything. And then he would send a message on his end, hey man, not going to be able to make it to work. And he would put the time. Like he's like,
Right.
I told him I woke up at 1:30 and was sick. Well, then he wouldn't call in the next day, and the guy would be like, man, what the hell happened? You never called. He's like, man, I sent you a text at 1:30. He's like, I ain't got shit from you. And he'd shoot him a screenshot. Man, I said I texted you at 1:30. He'd be like, and it's everything they said prior. So it
Yep.
looks legit,
It
but
looks legit.
it didn't come through on his phone. And he's like, well, damn, I don't know what happened. And I was like, well, you can't pull that shit but so many times before he starts getting hip to it.
That's
But
right. It starts getting hinky.
right. But I mean, just the fact that it's able to duplicate
Yep.
every single thing, it looks so legit. Like you don't know what to believe anymore, man. With the advancements of AI and that, it's hard to believe. That old saying used to believe, half of what you hear and none of what was it? Half of what you hear and none of what you see. It's definitely
That's
true.
right.
Yeah.
We're unfortunately coming to that time.
Yeah.
Very big time, unfortunately. Yeah. There's so many things yet to come. I explained earlier about cybercrime and the typologies and sort of how it's evolved. And I'm covering only about the last 10 to 12 years
Mm-hmm.
as far as that evolution. Yeah, there's more to come. I'm afraid to say much more to come.
Now, I think the term was none of what you hear and half of what you see, but now you can't believe anything of either
I
one.
don't know about the half of what you see.
Yeah,
You
now you can't
know,
even do that.
I mean, I was working with a couple of researchers, and we're looking at artificial intelligence images, and even determining images and their alteration and whether it's AI generated or not. What exactly is this, and where did it come from? So it's actually pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
At that level. Now there are companies. I think some of them are selling snake oil that claim that you can put an image in it and it'll tell you whether it was AI generated or not. But
Yeah.
I'm not there on that one because they're not disclosing how exactly they're doing that. You
Yeah.
know, we have a random number generator like a slot machine to
I was
determine
about to say
whether it was
it
or
might
not.
involve flipping a quarter. Who knows?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly, exactly. I should probably show a brief. I don't know if you can get it, but this is the book
Yep.
itself. And we're hoping to have it in distribution to bookstores. And it's had some wonderful reviews, and it just got a review by the Midwest Book Review that was excellent, that was published only a few days ago.
Okay. So is it
So,
available for purchase now?
yes, it is. It's on Amazon.
Okay. We'll put the
And
link to it in our show notes so people, if they're interested, they can go check it out.
yeah, absolutely. I think you can capture that from one of my emails.
Yep. We'll do that for sure.
Yeah.
And are you on any social medias that people can go follow along?
I am on LinkedIn specifically as me, no fake name. I wouldn't
Yeah.
try to find. I
Trying
wouldn't.
to search videos with you, I kept coming up with a very different Tom Arnold.
Yeah, well, may I suggest that you use a Russian search engine called Yandex.
Really?
Yandex tends to speak the truth no matter what about Americans
Yeah.
because it's the Russians. But the reality is, when you're dealing with Google, Bing, and the others, it depends who's paying for advertising largely.
Yeah. Well,
As to
Tom,
what you end up with.
Well, Tom, I definitely appreciate you coming on the show, my friend. I've had a blast. It's been a great
Yep.
conversation. We're going to put
Cool.
links to the show notes to your book down in the bottom so everybody can go click on it. We'll put a link to your LinkedIn as well. Thank you very much for coming on the show, my friend. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me today.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for this episode of Crime and Entertainment. We'll see you next week. Thank you, my friend.